friend Lazarus had fallen asleep, but am going there to
Wake him.
wake him up. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem. And many Jewish had come to Martha and Mary to combine them in the
Hold on, there we go.
loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him. But Mary stayed at home. Lord Jesus, which Martha said, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they will die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. I'm calling this superhero. Jesus was my superhero during my childhood. I loved comic books. I loved Archie. I loved Wonder Woman. And of course, there was Spider-Man and Superman and all that. My mother was a really good artist, so she decided she was going to make me superhero books with Jesus as the main character. And she did it by each volume was from the miracles that Jesus had provided for us. I have a list here. Now this, when he raised Lazarus from the dead, that was a miracle. And that was number 33 on the miracles that Jesus has done. But Mary trusted in God. She believed that whatever he could do, he would come and do it. Martha, on the other hand, acted like she was mad. She was mad that Jesus hadn't gotten there sooner to save her brother, because she still, just like the last time he went to stay with them, Mary stayed by his side where Martha was doing all the housework. She still didn't have that trust and belief that Mary had. So my mom would do these cartoon books or comic books for each miracle that he did. How do I click this up?
We need the
Maybe this.
the USB port. There should be a USB in that bag.
Oh, you can do it then. Just do it.
Go to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
After she said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and is asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at her feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would have not died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. This is one of the first time Jesus really wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him? But some of them said, could not he be who opened the eyes of the blind man have
Kept.
this man from dying. So there was still not a lot of trust, but then there was. Because even the soldiers started to weep over Jesus weeping. Now, like I said before, the miracles that he performed was over 37. There's 37 that's in the books. But there's still thousands that he did that's not even made it to the books. I'm going to read a couple of them. Water was turned into wine. Peter's mother-in-law was healed. He healed a blind man. Then he healed 2 blind men. Jesus walks the sea, heals a boy that is with an unclean spirit, and raises Lazarus from the dead. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he says. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there for 4 days." Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and in cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Now, if this was us, do you think we'd be standing there waiting for a dead man to come out of a tomb? I would be running. But everybody that was standing around was in awe. They couldn't believe that he just said a few words and the man came alive. But they have heard all the miracles he had done before, so I don't know why this would surprise them. But Jesus also knew where he was headed. He knew he was headed to death. And he did it because he's our friend. He did it for us. He loves us. And those who believe in him should never die, but live. Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did believe in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. "What are we accomplishing?" they asked. "Here is this man performing many signs. If we let him go on this, like this, everyone will believe in him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our temples and our nation." Then one of them, named Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, spoke up. "You know nothing at all. You do not realize that if this is better for you that one man dies for the people than the whole nation perish." He did not say this on his own, but a high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation, and not only for the nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and to make them one. So from that day on, they plotted to take his life. Could you imagine Jesus, what he was feeling? He knew he had never done anything, like when he was in the desert and he had no food for 40 days. He could have said, "Hey, could you bring me down some food here?" But he didn't. He took every step of the way, every painstaking step of the way. He did miracles along the way to prove who he was. Now, I don't know, once in your life, maybe had to prove yourself. This is exhausting. It's exhausting to try to prove yourself to somebody. But he never gave up. He just kept going because he knew where he was headed. He knew he was headed to death. Now you and me, if we knew we were walking the plank and we were headed to death, I don't know what I would do. I don't know if I would just celebrate and just live my life to the fullest or what. But Jesus was my superhero. He's still my superhero. And like my mom said, every miracle, he got stronger with his powers. And that's how I looked at Jesus from a young age, was that he was my superhero. I even danced around. I was going to be Jesus's partner like Batman and Robin. I would walk around with my cape on, but it was my robe. One of those robes that were really itchy back in the day. Couldn't stand those. So I put it around my neck instead. And I'm like, I'm Jesus' superhero partner. And my mom's like, would you take that stupid robe off? But Jesus is a superhero in my book. He knew where he was going. He did miracles along the way. To me, each time he did a miracle, his powers got stronger. Thank you.
Where did you get that picture?
I
amazing.
asked Pastor